All right. So hello, everyone, and welcome to this Loran webinar for educators across Canada. My name is Heather Holland, and I am the Director of Alumni and External Relations at Loran. I joined the staff team at Loran just over 3 years ago, and I'm an alum myself from the class of 1998. Prior to joining the staff team at Loran, I assessed applications as a volunteer on and off for over 20 years. It was an educator at my high school who encouraged me to apply 28 years ago. So I appreciate firsthand the positive influence that all of you have on your students with respect to this opportunity. Thanks so much for taking the time to be here today. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm joining today from Nogojawanong, Peterborough, Ontario. As we begin, I acknowledge and reflect on my privilege to live, work, and learn on the traditional territory of the Mississauga Anishinaabe. As we have attendees from all across Turtle Island today, I invite you to take a moment to acknowledge and reflect on where you are calling in from today. My colleague, Michelle, is kindly monitoring the Q&A box to respond to any questions that you may have. Thank you so much for that, Michelle. And my co-hosts, Isha Mahmood and John Milkovich, are also here with us. John is a bit delayed in joining, but hopefully we'll... oh, there we are. We do have John. Welcome. Yeah, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to both of you and say a great big thanks for joining us today to share your experiences as Loran Scholars. We'll hear more from you folks in a little while, but for the moment, if you could please just briefly introduce yourself to everyone, share your name, pronouns, hometown, where and what you studied, and that way we can do a little sound check for you as well, John.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Do I sound okay?
Yep, coming through. That's great.
Okay, it's nice to it's nice to be here today, talk about all the great things about Loren. I grew up in Callan, Ontario, and I went to undergrad at McMaster University and studied biomedical engineering and health sciences there in the integrated program that they have. I'm currently in medical school at U of T. And what else do I need? Is there anything else you need to discuss?
That's good for now. We'll have
Okay,
lots more to share later, but thanks
perfect.
for the brief intro. And Isha?
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be joining you today. I am originally from Cookstown, Ontario, and then I moved to Vancouver to study international relations at the University of British Columbia. And once I was done that, I moved to London, England, where I did my master's in international migration and public policy at the London School of Economics. And I'm currently working at a hospital foundation just outside of Vancouver.
Fantastic. Thank you both for being here today. All right, so the format for the webinar, the microphones are disabled. You are very welcome to submit questions in the question box at any time during the presentation. There will be a question period at the end of the webinar, and information will be sent to you after the webinar, including a recording. The Loran Award is much more than simply a financial scholarship for post-secondary studies. It is an opportunity to build critical skills and capacity for leadership, to expand horizons by taking on new challenges and exploring diverse experiences, and to join a community of purpose-driven peers who are committed to leaving the world better than they found it. In other words, this is a long-term investment focused on helping someone see their potential to make a difference, supported by and connected to a network of others who strive to lead with integrity. Students must be graduating from high school or CEGEP in 2026. Students who graduated in 2025 and are currently taking a gap year are also eligible to apply. They need to present a minimum cumulative average of 85% or an R score of 29 in Quebec, hold Canadian citizenship or permanent resident status, be born between January 1st, 2004 and September 1st, 2010. The long and the short of it is that the 85% is an eligibility criteria, but not a selection criteria. So generally they need to be academically strong, but not necessarily straight A's across the board. Once an applicant meets this mark, it doesn't matter if they have 86% or 98%. Loran's criteria is evidence of character, commitment to community service, and leadership potential. And regarding the permanent resident status, this has to do with the tuition waiver that is provided by our partner universities being offered only to domestic students. Loran believes that Canada needs unconventional leaders in every sector, so it looks for well-rounded young people who demonstrate strength of character, commitment to service in the community, and leadership potential. Over the past 35 years, the Foundation has invested more than $70 million in more than 3,400 students. It's interesting to note that we are a privately funded public charity. We aren't funded by someone whose last name is Loran, but rather by hundreds and hundreds of donors from across the country who also believe in the work that we do and want to give high potential youth the opportunity to imagine, explore, and create the future. Today, there are 796 alumni and in-stream scholars giving back to their communities and pushing boundaries in diverse fields such as technology, the arts, finance, medicine, social services, law, government, science, entrepreneurship, and everything in between. So turning back to our guests, Isha, if I could invite you to expand on your introduction and share a bit more about where you're from, how you found university, what you were like in high school, what drew you to the Loran Award, and a favorite Loran memory. There's a lot on that list, but if you don't mind expanding and telling us a bit more about yourself.
Okay, sure. I will try to cover as much as possible. So I'm from a small town. Cookstown, Ontario is a village of 1,000 people. There's actually no high school there. So I went to high school in the neighboring town. And I would say who I was in high school is I really was a connector. I was someone that was able to work with so many different groups of students and help them bring their ideas to life. And I really think that's kind of what led me to the Loran Award. I was someone who was organizing things at the school, whether that be initiatives, clubs, or events. And I was very self motivated. And I think that those are things that really drove me to have some pretty incredible results while I was in high school. One of my favorite parts of my high school experience was creating a jack.org mental health youth chapter, and that was the first one in my school board at that time, and that led me to be able to work with members at the school board level, as well as with administration and just lots of other people across the organization. So I would say at that point, I was really thinking outside of the box and hoping to make an impact that went beyond myself at the school. When I found Loran, I would say I had a pretty unconventional journey to finding the scholarship. And it was that I read about it in the University of Ottawa guidebook. I found it in the scholarship section. And when I went to go search for the award, I saw that the deadline was the very next day. So I stayed up all night working on my application. And I have to say that that is not a typical story, but I'm sharing this because I hope that it shows you that you don't always have to be looking for the student or encouraging people who are preparing for the entire year in advance or months in advance. It is possible to win the award with one night of writing your application. And I think that the reason that is because I just had very unique experiences and I had things that mattered a lot to me in high school that I was able to really display throughout my application and have some like very concrete numbers or initiatives behind that. So I was very lucky that I, moved through the interview process, which I think is something that's one, students are typically feeling very nervous when they're going through it because it can feel like there's a lot on the line. But I will say, having done the whole experience, the interview process is a very fond memory. And I feel like a lot of scholars feel that way. And it's because, I'm from a small town. So for me, that was the first time I was ever in a room with young people from all over the country who had things that were in common with me. And we were able to share lots of different cool things that we were doing at our high schools in our hometowns, and we were able to make some lifelong friends. I still to this day am in contact with other finalists that I met throughout my interview process, and I think I can confidently say that everyone has gone on to do such incredible things and make impact in their communities since then. My university journey at UBC was truly amazing. I never would have thought to leave Ontario or even apply to a school out of province if it wasn't for Loran. So that completely opened up my horizons as to what was possible for me. And while I was at UBC, I was very lucky to have a very large scholar community while I was there. I think there were around 20 plus in stream scholars at the time that I was attending UBC. And so I felt like I had this level of mentorship from these older scholars who really were there to help me transition into this new province, new school, and everything, which then kind of gave me the confidence to put myself out there and join clubs, run for elected positions, and be a part of the community. I remember when I started university in 2019, right away, I actually got involved with the federal election that was going on that fall, and I started volunteering for my electoral district there. And a lot of it was just because older scholars were telling me about things that they had done that were exciting for them and opportunities that they had maybe heard of, but they hadn't yet gotten the chance to explore. And so I would say I took those first steps because of the Loran community. And after that, in university, I really was able to carve my own path. I was a part of lots of different student leadership initiatives, whether that was through my student union, my faculty society, event planning, or lots of other relationship building, mentorship types of clubs and extracurriculars at university. And I would also say my summer internships that I did each summer, I completed my internships mostly in the nonprofit and public policy spheres. And again, lots of times those I chose to do the experience that I did because I spoke to another scholar who had done an experience there years prior, or maybe they knew somebody that was working there. They were really able to guide me and make sure it was a good fit for me before I embarked on that experience. And overall, I would say university was an awesome and transformative experience for me that really helped me develop into a leader and someone that was passionate about giving back to my community and gave me the motivation to invest in the areas that I was interested in and that I felt like I had the skills um, to contribute to. And since then, I have stayed very connected to the Loran community. I moved to London, England, and again, it was alumni that were living there that welcomed me there, and I was able to again seamlessly integrate into this brand new experience across the world where I had no family, no friends who were living there prior. And it always sticks with me that these big moves and big changes I made at such a young age, it was kind of the Loran community and experience that gave me the confidence to do it, but that helped me integrate into that. I would say my favorite Loran memory over my 4 years definitely has to be my fourth year retreat experience. The Loran program offers a more tailored weekend where we welcome the fourth year scholars in Toronto, and it's very much focused on what post grad will look like and how to transition into a career and life after Loran. And one, I think, my class was particularly close and continues to be, and we all stay in touch and really support one another. But two, it was just a really great place for us to ask all of those burning questions and put all of those anxieties about postgrad onto the table. And they were so well received and guided by the staff, by other alumni, and by the facility where we were being hosted at had some really great hosts that were providing us with some great information and guest speakers. So overall, I loved my experience, and I encourage any student who you feel like fits this guideline in some way to just put themselves out there and apply, and for you to just encourage them and give them the confidence, because you never know what could happen. Like I said, I was the girl that applied the night before, and it worked out for me in a way I never saw coming.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that, Disha. I really appreciate it. How about you, John? Can invite you to expand on your introduction and share some more about your own experience?
Sure, yeah. I think you should put it a really, really nicely in terms of the way that Loran encourages people to looks for people that are connectors and looks for people who are like leaders within their community. Uh, for me, I think the biggest things that I learned, I guess like reflected on like, you know, why Loran worked out is because I was someone in high school who was able to sort of uh, get involved in the community and get involved in important things and address those needs by like one doing them out of I guess like an authentic, genuine for like an authentic, genuine reason, and then two also like realizing that like what you do alone is so much more minimal than what you can do when you like mobilize a team and actually get like stakeholders and like community people involved. And so, for me, like I think one of the things that I like encourage you not to do is, after you like sort of listen to this talk is like, start brainstorming things of like, okay, like, I need to start this club now and like I need to like do it for like, so that I can write about this in my the ran essays and all my university applications. I think that's the wrong approach to take because at the end of the day, like the RAN has a very rigorous application interview process. And you need to be able to talk about these experiences, sort of with like a level of passion and uh, genuine nature that will reflect in these interviews. And so if you're just doing them for the sake of like an application, I think that will like show in the actual interview. So I think it's important to like, whatever you're doing in high school or I think just in like life, make sure it's meaningful and make sure that like it's something that actually aligns with your core values and it's not something that you're just doing because you feel like it's gonna sort of further your own personal your gain and interest. The other thing is like yeah, like you just said like I was someone in high school who I think I was able to make friends with a lot of people. I was able to make, good relationships with my teachers. I had a lot of really awesome role models and, that really helped me as well. And, whenever I had like an idea, sometimes it would be like, they would be like, okay, John, this is ridiculous. Like, move on and, forget about it. Or sometimes they would like, be like, okay, like, write it up. And they would give me like sort of the right guidance and steps to not like, spoon feed me to continue it and to develop it, but rather to like, find the right people and sort of be able to branch out into the community to make it happen. And so I think, moving into your grade 12 year or grade 11 year, whatever you're in, I think those are just two important things to reflect on is, am I doing these things because uh, they align with my core values and they make an actual difference in my community? And am I involving the right people in mobilizing a team and not taking on all this work by myself? Because at the end of the day, 9 times out of 10, you're gonna achieve much more than you can with the team and with members of the community than what you would do alone. And so my journey with Loran encouraged me uh, to sort of step outside my comfort zone and not be afraid to take risks that were meaningful. Loran is a sort of mantra about meaningful risk taking, and I think that's one of the great things about it is, it's something that, there shouldn't be a very linear, concrete path towards your career. I think it's important to explore that. And for me, that was, I went into my undergrad wanting to do biomedical engineering, and I was like pretty set on that in the beginning, and I was like, this is my life, this is my career. But it's so difficult to be able to determine that in high school, where your exposure to jobs and how things work is quite limited. And so, Loran, in a lot of ways, pushed me to do iBiomed at McMaster University, which is such a great program because it has that integration with biomedical engineering and health sciences. And so, after my first year and after my first community development placement, I did at the Global Pathway School in South India, where I was working as a community health intern, working on the database, like health database and program there. I realized that I gravitated a lot more to working with the people than my actual engineering tasks that I was doing. And that sort of steered me towards medicine. And so I really credit Loran for, wanting me or helping me realize that, becoming a physician is, my ultimate dream and, to continue all the engineering stuff as a secondary career choice. Not career choice, but career avenue. Um, my best memory of Loran is I would say the camping trip is awesome. We went to Algonquin Park, all like the entire cohort in my class of Loran scholars, and that was like such a great time. It was great like getting to know people in the woods. You really get to know people when you're not like, in an interview setting anymore where you're like putting on your polished self and your best foot forward, but you're like, hauling a canoe over your shoulders and it's like it's 30 degrees Celsius and you really have no cell reception. And I think that's really the best way to get to know people and just show like your sort of true character shine through. And I think that's really what Loren embodies. So that's an awesome time and it's something to look forward to, especially as you transition to university.
Fantastic. Thank you both for expanding on your intro and sharing all of that information. I'm going to return to speaking about Loran in general, and I'll look to you to share a bit more about your experience as we move through the content together. So our three pillars are character, service, and leadership. The biggest one, probably at this point in a young person's life, is character. We kind of think of it as the hard wiring already baked into these individuals, even at the age of 16, 17, or 18. Looking for the things we mentioned earlier, people who act with integrity, people who show compassion and kindness, people who are inner directed. They're not just chasing outer rewards. So they're not solo players. They like to work in teams. We know there are some great solo players who will come up with some wonderful scientific discovery or whatnot. But the Loran Award is actually geared for a different type of person, someone who is always engaged with others, thinking of others, and working with others. We mentioned before the intellectual curiosity in their interest to do different things and wanting to know more. We look for people who show courage and resilience and a commitment to service. And when we say service, sometimes people think that means formal volunteer work, but really it's commitment to others, really helping to make things better for other people, whether that's in their family, their community, their faith group, their schools, the workplace, simply just that dedication to others. We look for well-roundedness and authenticity and a willingness to take risks. Those who genuinely care about their communities and want to make things better. They're the people who take action. They don't just complain about it, but they get to work on fixing it and they bring others along with them. While we strongly encourage all students to apply if they feel like a good fit for the award, you as educators know your students best, so please consider those who embody the characteristics on the screen and encourage them to apply. The selection of a Loran Scholar is unique in both its attention to a young person's character and the comprehensiveness of Loran's selection process. Loran believes in looking beyond a student's transcript to find evidence of integrity, grit, compassion, determination, and resilience, recognizing that these are better indicators of a young person's overall potential. We are looking for the long-term impact these Loran Scholars will have. So think not necessarily of the student council prime minister, captain of the hockey team, first trumpet of the band, or the person who is at the top of the class now, but rather the student who will come back to their high school reunion in 30 years and will have made a profound impact within their community. As you know, these are not necessarily the same people. So who in your classroom has the potential to grow into the kind of person this award celebrates? I invite you to think about that. Program elements, when taken together, make the Loran Award the only one of its kind in Canada. I'll speak briefly to these elements now and then cover each in more depth as we move through the presentation. So the Loran Award includes an annual stipend of $12,000 plus a top up for first year residents if needed, a tuition waiver up to $12,000 annually, one-to-one mentorship with a local leader, a summer experiential learning program in 3 different sectors, and membership in a values-driven, diverse community, including an orientation experience, annual retreat, events, a national network, and a lifelong community. And I'll just add that the financial component of the award exists mostly so that we can provide scholars with the resources required to enable them to meaningfully contribute to their communities and fully participate in the program. And to clarify, the top up to the annual stipend of $12,000 is additional funds available in first year for individuals where first year university residence costs for a basic room and meal plan exceed the $12,000 annual stipend. And this award is renewable for up to 4 years or 8 academic terms. The Loran Award is tenable at any of our 25 partner universities. Loran scholars are strongly encouraged to go to university in a new part of the country. This provides a chance for scholars to exercise independence, spread their wings, discover new communities, serve new groups of people, and gain respect for different regions of Canada. Ultimately, where they attend is the scholar's decision. Scholars are welcome to study in French or English. And did you know that there are French options outside of Quebec? So on this list, we have the University of Alberta's Campus Saint-Jean in Edmonton, Glendon campus at York University in Toronto, as well as the University of Ottawa. Students still need to apply and be accepted, but they needn't have applied to university before they submit their Loran application. They can tell us on their application what they're thinking about for their university picks, but it doesn't need to be set in stone just yet. Each scholar is matched with a leader in their university city for a multi-year mentoring relationship. Loran mentors are people who embody the values of Loran and encourage our scholars to do the same. They are business people, community leaders, and experts in their fields, and they commit to sharing their experiences and networks with scholars throughout the course of their undergraduate studies. Potential Loran mentors are identified and recruited by Loran. We go through a matching process for each student, which includes a questionnaire and conversations between the scholar, mentor, and staff to confirm a suitable match together. We recognize that mentorship can come in many forms and encourage all scholars to engage in conversations with others who can provide insight or advice on topics around their academic and career interests. And we also facilitate connections beyond mentorship, including alumni summer coaching, fourth year transition conversations, and conversations with upper year scholars in a program or university of interest. I'd like to turn back to Isha and John, if you wouldn't mind sharing a bit about your experience with your Loran mentor or other coaching kinds of experiences you had in the program and how they impacted you during the program.
All right, so I was matched with a mentor in my first year who was a business professor at my university, and he was definitely really helpful for me during that transition time because he really helped to acquaint me with the community and gave me a lot of really great academic advice, as well as kind of helped me navigate the recruiting process for my internships that year. So I was really lucky to have that anchor with him. And then COVID actually took place during my university experience. And at that point, I was matched with a new mentor for the duration of my 3 years. And this was someone who was more closely aligned with the things that I was looking for outside of university. She was a practicing lawyer who had a lot of experience working in human rights and public policy and immigration specifically, which is actually what I went on to center my master's degree in. And so this mentor ended up being a really great link for me in the community. She was able to connect me with people who provided me with really great opportunities for me to grow. Something really notable I remember is she was a member at this women's club in Vancouver. and they invited me to come be a guest speaker where I presented about the link between immigration and policy and just these conversations going on in Canada at the time. And that was really amazing. I felt like she really encouraged me to go beyond my circles. And I think when you're going to school outside of your home province, it can be intimidating to go outside of campus and try and build your networks there. And I think that's actually the best part of the mentorship program is that they are someone who's well-grounded and has their network in that community. And so they can introduce you to other people, to opportunities that you may not have considered. And so I was really, really grateful for the guidance that she gave me, the connection she made for me, and also the way that she helped me navigate my post-grad journey.
Thanks so much for sharing that. How about you, John?
Yeah, my I had a great experience. My Loran mentor, we still keep in touch. His name's Aaron. He was the V he worked at Hamilton Health Sciences. Uh so sort of geared to more of the public policy and health policy side of things, which gave me really great insight into like, what when we would, meet up, he would like, tell me about like, the different challenges of within Hamilton's healthcare system and within Hamilton's community. And so it was really great to hear from his perspective because at the time I was really sort of focused on like the engineering stuff and while the problem solving and all that stuff is great, you can kind of lose sight of like the community. And so he really kept me sort of in touch with Hamilton. He was also great because he showed me like kind of the ropes of Hamilton and uh he really like, it was great to just like be able to hang out with them and to, you know, receive advice from someone who is, not necessarily your parents who, because they can come, give you sometimes like a biased view and not necessarily like your immediate friends at um university as well. And so he was a great guy and he is a great guy and I'm looking forward to eventually meeting up with him soon now that I'm a little bit further uh, in Toronto. But some other great things about the Loran mentorship is they typically align you with someone who is aligned with your interests, but also there's always a little bit of a twist. So for me, it was, I was interested in healthcare. I was this, biomedical engineering student. Um, but at the same time, this was someone who had, an interest in healthcare as well, but like had the public policy side. And so I think that like it just gives you a little bit more, insight and, when you're in that sort of school of like thought within like one particular stream and you talk to someone else and get their advice, like it really can give you a different perspective and help you sort of take on different opportunities that you wouldn't necessarily take on before. So yeah, it was great. I was really lucky and fortunate to have an awesome mentor matched through the Loran program, and that's the sort of typical experience. Everyone is usually pretty happy with who they get matched with.
Thanks so much. All right, so shifting gears to talk about summers. For Loran scholars, summer academic breaks represent opportunities for some of the most transformational learning experiences of their university careers. Assisted by our network and up to $14,000 in funding, students enrich their studies by building practical skills and experience in the professional world to which they will one day contribute. So whether spent in Canada or abroad, Loran summers are typically 12 weeks long and are designed to provide scholars with greater breadth and understanding of the interactions and intersections between the private, public, and not-for-profit sectors, and the role that each plays within the local, national, and global community. During public policy summers, scholars witness and participate in the process of policy creation. For enterprise summers, they contribute to the mission and goals of a for-profit environment. And rounding out the trifecta, scholars gain programming and service experience in community development summers as part of a not-for-profit or non-governmental organization. And yeah, Isha and John, if you could share a bit about your summers and the value that you found in them, that would be super helpful. Let's start with you again, Isha, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. All right. I really enjoyed my summers. My first one was for an Ottawa based nonprofit called the Nobel Women's Initiative. And I was working with 6 female Nobel Peace Prize laureates who were trying to advance several different grassroots organizations and activists kind of through the like reputable power of their award. And it was really great to be working one, so up close and personal with all of these activists around the world. And two, I had the chance to kind of own a project and have something very tangible at the end. So I was actually working on the production of a podcast series while I was there. And each week we were interviewing a new activist or just a woman who was making a difference in whatever it was that their nonprofit of interest was. And it was really great to be a part of that from the conceptualization of each episode until they were published at the end and being part of the marketing strategies. So I really enjoyed that experience. My second summer, I went on to work at the Calgary Chamber of Voluntary Organizations. And this was kind of like a chamber of commerce, but just for nonprofits in the Calgary area. And this was kind of my first role where I was doing policy research. And it was also really great. I was able to have a published news piece from there where I was researching Alberta's red tape. And I got to work with stakeholders, do research, release reports. And it was a lot more of the hard skills when it came to writing. And my last experience was actually built off of one of my extracurriculars while I was in university. So I started working for my student union in the Office of External Affairs, where I was taking part in provincial and federal lobbying on behalf of the entire post secondary sector. And so for my summer between my third and my fourth year, I worked for an organization called the Canadian Alliance of Student Associations, where I was just doing federal lobbying on behalf of a union of all of the different student unions across Canada. And this was a really great experience because we had two big advocacy wins that came from there. I also had a published article in the Ontario Undergraduate Alliance's annual journal, where I got to research student financial aid and the ways in which it was changing across Ontario. And that experience is something that I feel like is I am often asked about in interviews to this day. But overall, I would say all of the different colleagues that I met throughout those experiences were instrumental in where I am right now, and they continue to be people that I catch up with, grab coffee with, meet up with as many times as I can. And I, yeah, I really found them to be very fruitful, and I really enjoyed that organizations who take on a scholar are very committed to giving them something tangible that they can walk away with to show the work that they did.
Thanks so much. And John.
Yeah, so my summers were my first summer I think previously alluded to was at the Global Pathway School in South India, so specifically in a rural town called Chettipalayam, and this is organized through a Loran. This was a Loran based connection, and so I think one of the great things is that Loran has such a huge network, people across the world where you're going to see opportunities presented to yourself and doors that will open that you never previously knew existed. And so for me, this was I was supervised by Dr. Samir Gupta. He's a respirologist here in the GTA at St. Michael's Hospital. And he had started this. He's also a Lorenz
Mhm.
scholar, and he started his this preventative and promotive health care program at this school. And what this school aimed to do was provide education and healthcare to students to break the cycle of poverty that was occurring in the settlement areas of South India. And so it really gave students the resources to thrive and to go on to post-secondary education. And so for me, this was, I had sort of spent my first year at post-secondary school and, traveled to India. I've never been to India before. I've never been that far across the world before. And so that in its own was just such an amazing experience. And working like, hands-on directly in the community during that time was also so great as well. And like I said, I mentioned that, it was me wanting to hang out with the students and take on initiatives that involved building relationships in the community that sort of drew me more towards a career in medicine as compared to sort of my tasks in engineering that I was given. While those were still important and I still did them, it was uh, it was sort of just like a personal sort of observation I took away from that. And so, that's one of the great things I would say with the Loran Summers is it gives you a lot of opportunity and uh and in terms of things that you would do like maybe through like an extracurricular like you said Isha, as well as like things that you typically wouldn't do as well. And so I think that's one of the great things. My other summers were at Cancer Care Ontario. I worked with the surgical oncology program, and this was a great experience because it gave me a different perspective on health policy and how to make a difference. I never really understood what health policy was, but I worked with this team at a really important time. I had actually like, secured the internship before the pandemic. And so uh, my project had shifted and I ended up working on uh, with an engineering team to sort of estimate the enormity of the surgical backlog in Ontario at the first cancellation of surgeries. And so this was a really important project, and I didn't really understand how, or realize how important it was because during the pandemic ORs across the province were shut down to reduce the transmission and to protect frontline workers and also patients. And these were mostly elective cases that were being canceled. And so by measuring and estimating the magnitude of the surgical backlog, we were able to sort of provide a quantifiable and measure of like, this is the now the incremental backlog of surgeries that we're gonna have to like make up in, additional time, OR time, after we move out of the pandemic. And so I didn't really, I guess, realize how important this project was until it was published in the Canadian Medical Association Journal and was referenced by the Ontario government in their decision making to reopen ORs in a controlled way in areas that were not that were where the COVID pandemic was not affecting compared to urban centers. And so that was like, one way, and that was one of the projects. We worked on multiple different projects around like restructuring skin cancer care in Ontario, restructuring um, thoracic surgery and esophageal cancer care in Ontario, and it goes to show you that like these, you're using a lot of data and a lot of statistics to make important decisions about people's health. And so I think by working in that field, it really opened my eyes to how important and how much of an impact health policy can make, even though you're not necessarily patient facing.
Thanks very much. That's great. Right. The Loran community is a very rich one, comprising scholars, alumni, staff, volunteers, and donors. We aim to support each other and for each other. We have many gatherings and events, both virtual and in person, during a scholar's time in the program and beyond. Community is at the heart of Loran's work, and from day one, Loran Scholars join a supportive community that shares a commitment to service and leadership and strive to inspire each other to reach their potential and boldly tackle challenges and often work together. And Isha and John, I was hoping that you could each share just briefly on the value of the community, the Loran community, as you've seen it and experienced it. And perhaps we could start with you, John, for this one. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
So yeah, the Rands community is incredible. It's each I mean, at each of the universities you go to, you're gonna have a really tight group of Loran scholars that are already there. And so that's great because you can really sort of feel advice from upper years and get acquainted with the university in that sense. And so, for me, when I went to school, like McMaster had a really tight Loran group, and we would go out for lunch and dinner all the time, and we saw each other almost like, let's say, like at least every couple of weeks. And so like it's nice because you're gonna form your own friend groups and meet your own people in your programs, but this is an opportunity as well for you to branch out and see what other people are doing in your program. So you're not necessarily siloed in to whatever program or I guess like initial group that you form maybe in your residence, for example. And so I was able to get involved in the McMaster community through, opportunities that they were also like already involved with, and also, get a lot of advice from the upper years as well, because it is a struggle and it's hard to transition, especially for in my case, it was difficult transitioning to university, and so I was able to get a lean on that group a lot to make the transition, which is great. In terms of Loren's community as well, like we have Loren does a really fantastic job of keeping everyone connected across the province, right? It's amazing when you think that all these scholars I know, almost on a name to name basis, and we see each other once a year, and there's so many of us, but or sometimes more than a year, but at the actual retreats, we can see each other and we can hang out, and it's like we picked up right where we just left off from the last time we saw each other, and I've formed some really great friendships there. For example, I went to one upper year scholar's wedding in Alberta a couple of years ago now, and we had met through the Loran program. Actually, while I was interviewing, he was taking me to his interview. So it was someone I initially had like really I still look up to him, but in that time when you're like the interviewee and you're getting shuttled to your interviews by someone who's a year ahead of you, and then now you're congratulating them and celebrating their big special wedding day. It's a great thing to sort of experience, and it just goes to show you the level of closeness that you get with the community. Also, the staff are fantastic as well. They're really really supportive, really helpful. There's not a time where I feel like I can't reach out. Um, Even now that I've actually graduated and reach out for help, reach out to grab a coffee if I'm in the area. Everyone is very, very supportive.
Thanks so much, John. Isha, what about you?
Yeah, I think John really hit the nail on the head. I would describe the Loran community as being an anchor and a constant during a time of a lot of change. Like I previously mentioned, I'm someone that made two big moves. Life changed a lot for me since high school, but Loran was the one constant throughout it all. No matter where I was, I had scholars or alumni to lean on who were always there for me, personally and professionally. I think, a really great example of how close knit our community is just this past weekend, we had our community day. And so here in Vancouver, we had all of the in-stream scholars and any Vancouver alumni all got together. And I had so much fun meeting the scholars who are in stream right now and talking to them about my experience at UBC and, answering all of their different questions, as well as seeing alumni that I hadn't seen in years. And when I was in London, this same community day went on in the UK. So wherever we have a big hub of scholars, we will always make sure that there's some activities for them to get together and just reconnect. I think another great thing is that this is a community you can always lean on and will support you in all of your different endeavors. A great example of this is this past fall, we had an alumni who ran in the BC provincial election, and I worked on her campaign with her. And we were canvassing, knocking door to door together. I was the director of fundraising for her campaign. And so it was just, really great that having Loran in common is something that will always bring you together with people from all walks of life. And like John mentioned, it's not over once you graduate. When I graduated from my master's, Loran staff were some of the first people that I reached out to, and I said, "Oh my gosh, like I don't know what to do now," and they very quickly connected me with a bunch of different alumni who were working in fields that I was interested in or who they felt like maybe would be great for me to have a conversation with. And it was so helpful in getting them to connecting with them to help guide what the next chapter of my life would look like. So I really think that Loran is just an amazing constant to have no matter where you are in life.
Thanks so much. Great examples, both of you. Appreciate that. All right. So in addition to up to 36 Loran Awards, Loran will be granting up to 70 one-time provincial and territorial awards to candidates chosen by interview committees at the semi-final level, valued at $3,000. We will be also awarding up to 54 one-time finalist awards to finalists not selected as Loran Scholars. These awards are tenable at any publicly funded Canadian university. There are many opportunities for young people to succeed in our selections process, and we'll also share that we've heard year after year just how valuable the application process alone is to students. Often it's the first time they've reflected on their activity record and questioned their curiosities and motivators, which can be a wonderful exercise to do before life after high school begins. As you know, applications are now open. Students can visit the website on the slide to begin their applications. October 16th before noon Eastern Standard Time is the deadline for all applications this year. Late applications or references will not be accepted. And if a student has connectivity issues, they should contact us at info@loranscholar.ca or 416-646-2100 extension 100 to get a paper application. Paper applications are also due before the deadline. Shortlisted candidates will be asked to submit a supplementary video so that we can learn more about the applicant before semifinals. Then, if selected as a semifinalist, candidates will participate in online interviews via video conference and will be given at least a week's notice before their day of interviews. We will work with students who need support in getting internet connectivity. If we are unsuccessful, they will be interviewed by phone, and semifinalists who distinguish themselves in interviews will be invited to participate in national selections, which take place in Toronto in late February. All candidates will be contacted sometime during the week of December 15th with the results, and costs to attend nationals are covered by Loran. One of the most frequently asked questions that we receive is, what do I need to do in my interviews to become a Loran Scholar? Loran's interview process is so comprehensive and individualized that there really truly is no one way to become a Loran Scholar. We are not cookie cutter in our process. Our best advice continues to be for students to simply just be themselves. Our selections process recognizes that our candidates come from a diversity of backgrounds, each with different opportunities and challenges. We recruit selection volunteers from a wide variety of sectors, experiences, and careers who are demonstrating in their own lives the very values that we look for in our scholars. By the time a Loran Scholar is selected, they have been interviewed or assessed by up to 13 different people. Please encourage your students to learn more about the Loran Award by reading up on our website and/or attending a webinar like this one. They can begin the application at apply.loranscholar.ca. The application is made up of a series of short questions to gather the context of the applicant and their experience, followed by 4 essays, with the longest essay being a max of 350 words. Encourage your students to start early. They can save their application in pieces and work on it over multiple sessions. While working on their application, students should determine who will provide a reference for them. Their referee may be a teacher, another faculty member at your school, or whomever else they feel can speak to their activities and qualifications for the award. This person may not be a friend or family member, and they should clearly communicate the request and deadline to them. Referees will be asked to complete a few questions about the applicant, plus write a reference letter no longer than 250 words. An applicant can trigger the reference request within the application portal. The referee can complete their portion of the application before the applicant has completed their portion. The application is not fully submitted until the reference portion is complete, so both portions are due before the deadline. Completed applications cannot be changed, and we cannot accept letters from referees to attach to an application. It must be done online via the emailed instructions. Referees should check their spam folder if they don't see an email requesting that they log in after 2 hours following when the reference section was submitted by the applicant. Applicants should stay in close contact with their referee to ensure that they submit the recommendation form on time. And the application and reference form, as I said, must both be completed before the deadline, or their application will unfortunately not be considered. Students cannot skip steps. The entire process must be completed online, or if they aren't able to complete an online application for connectivity or other accessibility reasons, then certainly accommodations will be made. And we are right up to we're coming close to the end of our time together. So I'm going to pause rather than turning to you, Isha and John, again to chime in on your experience with applying. I'd like to invite my colleague Michelle to join us, see if there's any questions that attendees have that they want to pose in the chat right now, and give us a chance to answer live. And if there aren't any, then I can turn back to Isha and John to hear a bit more about your experience with applying. Anything you'd like to share in that vein. Michelle, was there anything that you wanted to speak to before we do that?
There are no questions in the chat, but just some that come through in our info box. I just wanted to flag that there are no limits to the number of candidates that can apply from each school. And the other thing is that transcripts are required for the application. And so if there's a process that takes some time from your school end to get those transcripts to the candidates, please make sure that they ask for that early and they start that process early so that it's submitted before the deadline. It has to be a school or ministry issued transcript. It cannot be a report card or a screenshot of a student portal. And if any other questions come in, there seems to be one. Can the reference also work on it over a period of time? It's best if the reference logs in and completes it in one sitting, just because it does not save. But what we do recommend sometimes to referees is you can log in and see what the questions are and work on it in a Word document, and then you can always go back and put it all into the reference form and submit. The average is calculated from the entire transcript. So for some schools in some provinces, that's grades 9 to 11, and for others, it's grade 10 to 11. So whatever your school or ministry provides is what we use to calculate the cumulative average.
Thanks so much, Michelle. And that brings us to the close of our time together. We have one more question there that we can sneak in an answer to say, yes, there is no limit to the number of applicants from any single school, as many who wish to apply are very welcome to. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time and Thank you for encouraging students within your school community to apply. Thank you also, John and Isha, for joining us and highlighting your own experiences. Yeah, so grateful to both of you for being here. And for any further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at the contact information that was provided and is available in the chat. Thanks again. Take care, everyone, and all the best.
Good luck applying. Bye, everyone.